Well, welcome back, guys. It's Tuesday, April the 1st, and we're planting today, putting out transplants on the plastic for the first time today. I'm in my tractor here with the hole puncher. You turn it around where you can see it. All right, these are what we use to punch the holes in the plastic, different wheels. This one is on the 24-inch spacing, which means it's 24 inches between holes. This is what we use for our red watermelons. We've got an 18-inch wheel and a 36-inch wheel. Yesterday, on Monday, we punched the holes for the tomatoes and the cantaloupes. Those both went in at 18-inch spacing. So I did not get that on video, but I'm going to show you this morning here what I'm doing with the hole puncher on the red watermelons. If you remember last week, I told you that we had to punch the holes ahead of time. So we punched the holes yesterday. We're going to start planting today. Punch some of these holes today, plant tomorrow. The weather is still very iffy, starting Wednesday through Saturday of this week. Possibility of big rains, possibility of severe weather. So the guys are starting on the tomatoes this morning, and then hopefully they'll jump into the cantaloupes this afternoon, hopefully. Just a reminder, the only time we really have to punch the holes ahead of time is this very first week that we're planting, because we have recently fumigated the beds and we want to make sure all the gas is dissolved or gone or whatever it's going to do. I'm pretty sure that it is, because you can smell it if it's not, and I haven't smelled any once we've punched these holes. But just out of safety precaution, the very first week we plant, we do punch the holes ahead of time. From here on out, we'll just punch them as we go. We offset the center of the wheel just slightly to the opposite side that the drip tape is on. If you remember when we laid the plastic, the drip tape is offset just a little bit to one side. So we offset the wheel just a little bit to the opposite side, just to make sure that we don't punch it. The different spacings that we do in between the plants on the beds can vary as far as, you know, there's not one particular spacing that you have to go with. Tomatoes, we've always gone with 18 inches. I've played around a little bit with the cantaloupes. In fact, we used to do 9, ended up going to 18 inches and have been there for a while. The watermelons, I like to have so many square feet per plant. So, you know, if you have your beds closer together, you're going to need to widen out your spacing in the row. I like to have at least 25 square feet per plant, so we can do that when we're at 24 inches in the row. Now the yellow watermelons, I like to spread them out to 36 inches because it gives them a little bit an opportunity to get a little bit bigger, because they don't get as big as the red. Now my late season melons that we do not plant on plastic, the rows are a little bit closer together from center to center, so we plant everything on 36 inches there. It's the same principle with so many square feet per plant. With things like cucumbers, peppers, either bell peppers or hot peppers, I've played around with the spacing on those also. We've done the double drill on the peppers and the single drill, and I don't know how critical a lot of that is for that. We've had success doing it different ways. With the squash, I've always done that at 18 inches. I would say the most critical on the spacing is going to be your watermelons, because if you have them too close together, then they're not going to size up for you. See, it's 18 inches from center to center, here to here. Got good moisture. Just dropping the plants in the hole and going back and squeezing the dirt around them and packing them. Now, it's not easy, it's hard work, but it's pretty simple. It's windy today. You can see why I don't like the tomatoes to get too big, because being out here in the wide open, you don't want them just to be blown around to death before they get established. I mention this every year. We do not use a water wheel transplanter. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically a wheel like we have on the back of the tractor, mounted on a frame, goes behind the tractor. It's got two seats that sit on each side of the wheel. It's got a water tank which flows water into the hole as you're punching the hole, and you just ride and drop the plants in there, and the water just kind of melts it in. I like to have each plant hand squeezed and packed tight in that hole, and you cannot do that if you're riding on a water wheel transplanter. Now, lots of people use them, and I'm sure they get by fine without it. I think it does a better job like this. That's just my opinion, and that's the way we've always done it. And it will keep you from bending over all day if you're riding in that seat, but it also has some disadvantages. If it was wet out here right now and we had these holes punched, we could plant all day by hand and not have to worry about a tractor making ruts, being too wet to turn around and all that, which happens a lot. Every year that happens, where we are out here planting when we could not have been if we had to depend on a tractor. So that's an advantage that I like, and of course this is just my opinion. If that situation does happen where it's too wet to use the tractor, we also have hand hole punchers that space out whatever spacing we need, and we can punch the holes by hand and not get this big tractor out here, using the hole puncher. So having the option to do all those things if it's wet has made a big difference. It allows us to stay on a schedule, which is so important for everything that we do. Try to stay on our planting schedule, keep everything on time. I also got the second sweet corn planted yesterday right next to the first. I was gonna do it today, but it was a lot less windy yesterday, so I wanted to get it planted and sprayed before we started planting. So we'll have one more planting of sweet corn maybe in about 2 weeks or so. The variety of tomatoes that we plant is Roadster. I mentioned that back when we planted them in the greenhouse, but just one variety, and we'll make 2 plantings. We'll come back in maybe 3 to 4 weeks and plant my second round in the field. This next morning, Wednesday morning, and the wind is no better today than it was yesterday. I wanted to do some more filming outside and doing some talking, but the wind was like it is now. But we did finish the cantaloupes. They're on 18-inch spacing just like the tomatoes, and the variety is Avatar. We'll make 3 plantings on the plastic, different ages, and then we'll make a 4th planting on bare ground in my late crops. I'm gonna finish punching the holes in the watermelons. We're starting on the red watermelons this morning planting. We won't get through today, but we'll do as much as we can. There is a chance of some severe storms this evening. We're probably going to get some rain for sure, but it may be later in the day or late afternoon and evening. Here where we are in our part of the country, between probably the middle of March and the middle of May, anytime it's gonna rain, our local weathermen tell us there's a chance for severe weather, and maybe there is, but you cannot hardly plan to wait it out, because there's always a chance of severe weather just about in the forecast. So I was kind of wrestling with, well, do I wait till this week is over? But then you get into next week and it's going to be the same thing. I know they're just doing their job, but it seems like it gets blown out of proportion a lot of times. But if I waited until there was never any chance of severe weather, I would never get anything planted. And we've had severe weather before, and we've had to replant, and we've had damage, and I'm sure at some point we'll probably have it again. Hopefully not today or this week, or this year, but you know, who knows. But to me, it seems like the more technology that those weather guys have, the more sensationalized their forecasts kind of become, and they're kind of a doomsday predictor. So I don't know if it's like that everywhere else, but it seems like our weathermen are like that. And that doesn't mean we're not going to get severe weather tonight, but I hope we don't. But I used to watch all that, every minute of it, every hour, every radar. But all it did was just make me worry, and usually for nothing. So I've kind of learned just to find out when it's going to rain and try not to be glued into all of their predictions, and because a lot of times doesn't pan out, and sometimes it does. But there's nothing I can do about it anyway. I trust that the Lord's going to take care of us. He always does. And other than that, I just got to go with it. You know, if I were to wait, say for instance, until this week was over, I have a pretty good risk of my transplants getting too big on me. So I don't want that either. So we're gonna plant today until it starts raining, and we'll finish whenever we can get back in here and hope and pray for the best. Variety on the red watermelons is 720 Jubilee at 24-inch spacing. We'll do 2 plantings on the plastic of the red, and then we'll do a 3rd planting on bare ground in our late crops. Anytime there's severe weather possibility, I move the trailers here inside the shop, because even though they're under the cover in the back, you know, it could rain or hail sideways. And so just out of safety, I bring them in here just to make sure. I can fit both trailers in here too, but we planted enough to where I've got it all down to working off of one trailer now. Okay, it's Thursday morning, and we did not get any severe weather last night. In fact, it never even sprinkled. So I'm thankful for that. There was some in the area though, and a lot of bad storms up Arkansas and up all the way through the Midwest. But we're not out of the woods. We've got chances today, tomorrow, and Saturday. Maybe Saturday possibly being the more likely threat. So because the wind has blown so bad the last 2 days, I'm gonna turn the water on each zone. The little plants don't have any roots established yet, and that hole may have dried out some where we punched the hole and planted the plant. So just in case, I'm gonna give everything one good watering this morning. The wind is not gonna be like it was the last 2 days, but it still will be blowing some today. The guys are back at it planting the red watermelons, and we should be able to get through today if we don't have any rain delays. So that's the plan. All right, see what the tomatoes look like after they've been in the hurricane force winds the last couple of days. They don't look too bad. They're gonna go through a shock here in the next week, so that's normal, but they don't look too wind blown. They'll probably have some wind burn a little bit, like maybe a little bit on the tips there. Overall, they look pretty good. Anytime you transplant anything, they're gonna go through a shock. Usually it tends to be more of a shock, the early planted stuff, than it is the later planted stuff, but they'll got to get used to being from in that flat to in the field in the weather conditions and all out here, and get the roots established. So they'll kind of go from looking good to maybe not so good, and then all of a sudden they'll catch hold and take off. See here where we paint with the paint marker, that's T for tomatoes and C for cantaloupe. We do that just to help make sure we don't get confused anywhere. That helps keep us from planting the wrong thing on the wrong row when we're laying everything out. You can see it is starting to sprinkle a little bit, but there's really nothing on the radar, so I'm gonna keep on with the watering this morning. Probably hit each zone for about an hour apiece probably. I do want to mention how we water as far as the zones go. I'm going to walk down here to the middle of the field and show you about the hoses. But when we water, we put all the tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, eggplant, squash, all that into one zone when we plant. The other two zones are watermelons and cantaloupes, and every time we water, we have to water either zone 1, 2, or 3 one at a time. So we do that because I water and fertilize through the drip tape differently with the watermelons and the cantaloupes than I do everything else. So the only way to differentiate between the two is to put them on different zones. 3 zones in this field. So all the tomatoes, squash, cucumbers, peppers, eggplant get the same amount of water, the same amount of fertilizer through the drip tape. Same with the watermelons and cantaloupes. They get the same amount of water, same amount of fertilizer through the drip tape. Okay, you can kind of see this a little bit here, but water is going from right to left. Got the water on zone 3. So we transition from the 3-inch lay flat to the 1.5-inch oval going to zone 3. This black hose right here is the end of zone 2. So this is one of the places where we divide between zone 3 and zone 2. So with the watermelons and the cantaloupes being in zones 1 and 2, 75% of all that will be watermelons approximately, and then 25% of that will be cantaloupes. So this is the edge of zone 2. So all the rest of the field will be broken into 75-25 ratio. Whether we get any bad weather or not, we always have to come back and replant some plants that didn't make it. So like that one I showed you that had a burn tip, it'll probably be fine, but if for some reason it withers up, we'll pull it. Sometimes the wind will break some off when they're young and tender. Sometimes it's just a bad plant, whatever. We like to have as close to 100% stand as we can get. So probably in a week we'll come back, walk every row, plant every plant that doesn't look completely 100% healthy. And then if we have to do it again, we'll do it again. We'll just keep pecking away at it until we can get as close to that 100% stand as we can. That's why we always like to have some extra transplants to do that. Now if you get a big storm damage where you have a big percentage that you have to replant, then that can be a little bit an issue if you don't have enough transplants ready. Okay, we're getting close to finishing up here. This is the end of the first planting of red watermelons. They're not finished, but they're going to be finished here pretty soon. They got to get down about halfway, and that's where we're going to stop. That will conclude the first round of tomato planting, cantaloupe, and watermelon planting. So we're on schedule. This is April the 3rd. As we go each week throughout the spring, we get a little bit busier and a little bit busier because we continue to plant. We've got to take care of everything we've already planted. There's lots of things that we'll have to do coming up soon. Our risk and our exposure, though, just went up a lot by having all these little tender transplants out here. So we'll give you a weather report after this week's over on the next video. So we're going to end the video here. Thank y'all so much for watching. If you have not subscribed to us, I would appreciate that. And we will see y'all next time.